Thanks very much, Dene, for your very kind introduction, and a very good afternoon to everyone. First, let me thank the organizer, UP Asian Center, for having me here along with friends and also colleagues. And I certainly feel a great honor to take part in this very important forum, especially since this is a platform to give honor to Professor Eileen Bavira and also Professor Mario Miklat. And as uh, my friend Rahul was very kind to talk about hedging and all that. And I hope I won't disappoint him if I'm actually talking about something else. And the reason just being because of knowing that my friends Rahul, Romel, Jet, and all that will be here. I'm worried that they might react if I say in my presentation is going to be about hedging, like hedging again. So I thought today I should talk about something different, even though I would certainly take the honor and also instruction from the organizer to focus on Southeast Asia-China relations. So here I try not to talk about South China Sea too much, not to talk about hedging directly, but let me focus on some dimensions that I thought equally, if not the more important about Southeast Asia-China relations and also important about Asian international relations. So given the time that we have, I thought I would just focus on not more, not less, but 3 points, 3 dimensions of Southeast Asia-China relations that I thought are gaining momentum, getting more important, and it looks like they are going to continue in the coming years, if not coming decades. So the 3 aspects that I'm going to focus on are about 3 I's: infrastructure, institutions, and interdependence. And you could see that they are all very much interrelated. And the 2 words that I try to underline here, the low and also limits, show that I'm not just going to talk about all good news or all bad news. There are clearly both. So I'm going to also highlight both successes, but also failures, where Southeast Asia and China try to engage each other mutually. Yeah. So engagement clearly is a 2-way interaction. There are 2-way traffic. So it's when we talk about engagement, it has always been mutual engagement. And I think the timing of this forum cannot be better in the sense that we are actually celebrating the 30th anniversary of ASEAN-China engagement in the form of dialogue relations that started from 1991. And so let me focus on the first I. As I mentioned, I have 3 I's. So I have 1 slide per each of the 3 points, each of the 3 I's. So the first thing first about infrastructure. The earlier presenters before me, I think Professor Talumpas, Jen, and also, of course, Rahul, have already mentioned about Belt and Road. And that's not surprising, given the fact that the kind of attention that have been giving and also debated about Belt and Road over the years since 2013. So it's only natural for us to perhaps talk about Belt and Road Initiative. And Belt and Road Initiative, as earlier presenters make it very clear, is about infrastructure. So let me highlight a few issues that about Belt and Road related infrastructure. So I know that many organizations, entities, think tanks all over the world, it's not just in Asia, but all over the world have created the kind of different maps in order to monitor what is really going on in different parts of the world. So whenever I try to look into those maps officially and unofficially, I always come to my mind 2 words, which is about dots and lines, in the sense that infrastructure projects are being promoted by China on the one hand and also a host country on the other hand, clearly are about different kind of infrastructures. Some infrastructures, like for example, ports, for example, industrial parks, there are like dots on the map. And when you look into lines, like a rail links and also pipelines, there are the kind of lines, and of course some are solid lines, some are dotted lines. So let's call them dots and lines on the Belt and Road map, and you are going to see, I would say, relatively a high concentration on Southeast Asia. So how best to describe a Belt and Road Initiative in like a few minutes? I would describe Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, as a form of inducement is a tool of inducement on the part of rising power, in this case China, vis-a-vis other smaller countries and also partners, either in Southeast Asia and also elsewhere. So we all know BRI by now, 8 years after it was launched in late 2013, have been associated with a number of, I would say, controversies and also some would say even negative words, like for example, debt traps, for example, having a bad impact on economic, social, and also environmental, so on and so forth. And one of the puzzling aspects about what is going on right now, right here in Southeast Asia and beyond, is that despite all the negative news and also reports and also controversies, a fact that is ongoing before our eye is that you do see almost every day, every now and then, countries, small countries in the region and elsewhere have chosen to collaborate with China on Belt and Road Initiative. So what explained that? I think to make a very complicated issues shorter and perhaps simplify a little bit is that this is a matter of supply and demand. Because of Belt and Road Initiative, Belt and Road partnerships, it's not just like China push to smaller countries. There clearly are high demand on the part of smaller countries, on the part of partnering countries. Some call it recipient countries, I would call it host country. There is a high demand on the part of smaller countries, Malaysia, Laos, Cambodia, Singapore, Brunei, so on and so forth. Of course, the format of Belt and Road partnerships differ. Singapore, for example, take part in Belt and Road not within its own country, but it's the forward engagement in Chongqing and also other parts. But all other countries we are hosting. We are hosting a different kind of infrastructure, primarily because of there is a demand on our part. And it's true for virtually every developing countries that you need infrastructure because of this is a core element for economic development. So there has always been a high demand, a thirst. We are very thirsty, right? We have a high demand on infrastructure development, both at the national and also local levels. And it's not just within a national boundary, but also there are both intra, but also inter-regional. So between us and also neighboring countries, even other regions. And we need all that primarily for economic opportunities, but clearly there are always some political dimensions, because you would agree with me that I think all ASEAN watchers, all observers, analysts of Southeast Asian countries would realize that the development is more than just economic issue. It is actually a political issue. Why is that? Because of performance legitimacy. Economic performance is important for all countries, for sure. But for countries that are less democratic or non-democratic, authoritarian, we need much more economic performance because of the country already suffer some deficit in terms of democratic legitimacy. So performance legitimation is crucial for all ruling elites in various countries, all countries. And infrastructure is key. But while there is always a high demand, increasing demand, we might not have a constant supply. So Asian development, World Bank, IMF has been playing a big role, but clearly they acknowledge that what they're offering, what they are supplying is not enough to meet the growing demand because of a growing population, economic activity, so on and so forth. So Belt and Road Initiative, to some extent, become a supplier that would meet some of the demands and hence the receptivity by countries that I have just mentioned. But clearly we do see different patterns, right? Not all 10 ASEAN countries are receptive about China's Belt and Road. Some are more receptive than the others. But what we could see is that all these different variations, differences across 10 ASEAN countries, from very receptive, Laos, Cambodia, Singapore, Malaysia, and Brunei on the one hand, and to another end of, you do see Vietnam is not very receptive about China-funded infrastructure projects. So far, there is only one, which is the urban city project in Hanoi. And Vietnam tried to keep distance from China-funded infrastructure projects, despite growing economic and also investment links. So, and you have other countries like Vietnam, like Indonesia, and also Thailand and Myanmar, somewhere in between. Philippines, you do see there are fluctuating responses, from keeping a distance to build an agenda, so on and so forth. Yeah, but here, all these different examples, you do see some common pattern. Big power push, but in some cases, smaller states are the one who pull China in. And what explained that? Domestic politics in the form of performance legitimation, very, very important. In other cases, like for example, Vietnam, for example, Philippines during Aquino III period, you do see that it is being offset, constrained, limited by other domestic factors in the sense that nationalism, anti-China sentiments. So those are at play in limiting as to why smaller countries, the ruling elites, sometimes have to be restrained in order to not going too far, collaborating with China. Let me bring up my final point for this slide, and then I will move on to the remaining points that I'm going to share. Is that by now, with all those setbacks, bad news, and also controversies, you do see some progress in terms of some infrastructure imprints are already taking place. You do see, for example, the kind of the ports construction in Kuantan, in Muara, in Brunei, are all taking shape. And then you also see a lot of real projects, for example, those in Laos, despite the COVID situation, it's actually on schedule to be completed by the end of this year. And then this is going to be the first China-funded real project in Southeast Asia that would be linked directly to China. And then in Malaysia, despite the controversies about ECRL, you are also seeing that is actually happening, especially after the renegotiation in April 2019. So you are seeing dots and also lines happening at different pace, different scale in Southeast Asia, different part of Southeast Asia. And what I'm sharing here, the three I's are very much a product of findings of two recently completed projects. The first one, it's a book project with my co-authors, Professor Lambton, my teacher, and also my colleague from Singapore, NUS, Selina Ho. And there are other projects. Second project is actually a project that we give honor tribute to Professor Eileen Bavira. Madam Eileen contributed a chapter for the Philippine paper. And then we have Professor Aris Arugai to actually contribute and also a co-author. And we have other authors, mainly from Southeast Asia, but also from those outside of the region. And that appeared a few weeks ago as a special issue in Asian Perspective. What you see from this slide is part one. We have part two covering Vietnam, Singapore, and Laos that would appear in the same journal in a few months around September. So with that, let me try to keep relatively short for the other two I's, institutions and also interdependence. So the second I is about institution, because of infrastructure and institution go hand in hand. And let me focus again the point that I highlighted earlier on. Institutional engagement interactions between China and Southeast Asia is a two-way process. It's a mutual engagement. It started from in early 1990s when ASEAN tried to engage China into the ASEAN family, first as an observer, and then later on as the dialogue partner from 1996 onwards. So in this process, you could see that, and that's contrary to conventional wisdom that China tried to overthrow current institutions. I think empirically this is not correct. China has been actually taking part in multilateral institutions, including ASEAN-led institutions that started back in 1990s, and then one after another, ASEAN Regional Forum, ASEAN Plus 3, EAS, ADMM Plus. So China has been early on nervous, but later on an active participant in taking part in all that before they promote their own initiative and also their own institutions, primarily around the same time when they put forward the Belt and Road Initiative. So AIIB is the most important, I would say, the first and also the major China-led initiative, and that's at the global level. But this is also being pushed together with other multilateral development banks, like for example, Shanghai Cooperation Organization Bank, and then also BRIC Bank, the new bank. And at the regional level, Southeast Asia, you do see that China has been pushing for sub-regional institutions, both in mainland Southeast Asia, Lanchang Mekong Cooperation, but also in maritime Southeast Asia, the Bianga plus China ministerial meeting that started 2018. So what we could see is that we are seeing like more processes and also momentum giving rise to more and more China-led, China-centered institutions at regional and also a global level, even when China continues to take part in institutions that are led by others, including and especially ASEAN. China continued to invest and take part in ASEAN, and RCEP that came out last year is just a newest example. And but we are going to see China would promote more and more institutions in the years and perhaps in the decades to come. Of course, depending on what will happen within China. So this is my final slide, interdependence. The million-dollar question here is that, yes, we all know that infrastructural and also institutional imprints are taking place. They are developing, they are expanding. But the question here is, do all these growing imprints and also presence translate into interdependence and influence? I think that is still remain a big question mark. What we could see is that by now, yes, interdependence is deepening in the sense that, and it's deepening in more than one layer. Economic interdependence is clearly very clear. Last year, ASEAN overtook EU to become China's largest trading partner. And this looks like it's going to continue for the years to come, if not the decades to come. But we are also seeing interdependence beyond economic aspect, institutional, for example. RCEP again is another example, is an example to illustrate this. And as COVID-19 is happening, you do see other aspect of interdependence take place. Of course, China's so-called vaccine diplomacy play a part. So we are going to see a health interdependence in many ways. It's not just China and Southeast Asia, but of course with many other partners. US, Japan have all make it very clear that, and Quad as a group have make it very clear that we are going to deepen the health interdependence. So all these clearly from smaller countries' perspective, the more the merrier. But there are certain interdependence that smaller countries in the region are not very comfortable, right? For example, the digital interdependence, because smaller countries, when we are small, you are worried about over dependence. And it's in the DNA of all smaller countries to try to diversify as much as possible, but there are dilemmas here. When you are diversified, inevitably you find that you're also being position between competing powers. And those are the things that we are kind of ambivalent about it. Ambivalent in the sense that we welcome some countervailing forces to check on China to help us diversify. But we are also worried that we might be entrapped into a big power politics, and hence the hedging approach in one way or another. Some hedge heavier than the others. And then I think this will continue. So my last point, I know time is running out. And the last point here is that I think we are all our own worst enemy. We are our own biggest enemy. And when I say you and also we, I'm saying everybody. For China, for Southeast Asia, but also other big powers, in the sense that a lot of things that sometimes some actors do not help the kind of declared signal. China, for example, on the one hand, try to induce smaller countries with Belt and Road and other diplomacy, but a lot of actions that China has been doing did not help its own cause. For example, sending 200 ships to Philippines water, and a few days ago, sent not one, not two, but 16 jets to Malaysian airspace. And on the day when the two countries, Malaysia and China, celebrate 47th anniversary of diplomatic relations. How ironic is this? And by doing that, China is actually pushing friends and partners to another side, even closer. And then this is clearly an example of China's own worst enemy. Southeast Asian countries, on the other hand, also I think we need to, at the individual level and also at the group level, we need to get our house in order before, for the main reason that if we don't hang together, we'll be hanged separately, and other powers and players have a role to play as well. But again, I think the consistency and also actions that are prudent to avoid the regional polarization should be the key for everybody. And with that, I will stop my presentation. Sorry for taking longer than I wanted it to be. Back to you, Daniel. Thanks.